Shanice Williams stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting her crisp black uniform and name tag for another busy day at the Silver Spoon, one of Atlanta's most popular upscale restaurants. At 26 years old, she had already spent 8 years in the service industry, working her way up from small diners to this prestigious establishment. The morning sun filtered through her small apartment window as she checked her phone, seeing another medical bill notification pop up. Shanice sighed, thinking about the growing stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen counter. Her recent stomach problems had led to several doctor visits, but without proper health insurance, each appointment drained her savings. Just keep pushing through, she whispered to herself, a habit she'd developed since taking on the responsibility of helping her younger sister through college. Their parents had passed away 3 years ago in a car accident, leaving Shanice as the primary provider for her 19-year-old sister, Kamika. The bus ride to work was unusually crowded that morning. Shanice clutched her bag, containing her comfortable serving shoes and a packed lunch, trying to save money by avoiding the expensive restaurants near work. As she watched the city streets pass by, her stomach gurgled uncomfortably, a familiar sensation that had been troubling her for weeks. The Silver Spoon's elegant facade came into view as Shanice hurried down the street. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a historic building, its large windows showcasing pristine white tablecloths and sparkling chandeliers. Despite her health concerns, Shanice managed to smile. This job paid better than any she'd had before, and the tips from wealthy customers helped keep Tamika in college. "Morning, Shanice," called Marcus, the friendly security guard who always arrived early to check the premises. "Ready for another Saturday?" "Always ready," she replied, though her stomach chose that moment to make another uncomfortable sound. Marcus pretended not to notice, holding the door open for her with a kind smile. In the employee locker room, Shanice changed into her serving shoes and arranged her hair neatly. Her coworker, Jenny, was already there, applying lipstick in front of the small mirror. "Girl, you looking a little pale today," Jenny observed, turning to face Shanice. "Everything okay?" Shanice nodded, not wanting to discuss her health issues. "Just didn't sleep well. Nothing some coffee won't fix." The morning staff meeting was brief, with manager Richard Thompson announcing a full booking for the evening, including several large parties celebrating special occasions. "Remember, people," he emphasized, his stern face scanning the room. "The Silver Spoon maintains the highest standards in Atlanta. Every guest should feel like royalty." As Shanice took notes about her assigned tables, she felt another wave of discomfort. The doctor had mentioned something about possible food intolerances, but the required tests were too expensive. She'd been managing with over-the-counter medications, hoping the problems would resolve themselves. The first few hours of her shift went smoothly. Shanice was good at her job, remembering regular customers' preferences and maintaining the perfect balance between attentiveness and discretion. Her section included tables 15 through 20, prime spots near the restaurant's elegant bay windows. During her short lunch break, Shanice called Tamika to check on her. "How's studying going, sis?" "Just finished my biology midterm," Tamika answered excitedly. "I think I aced it." The pride in her sister's voice made all the long hours worth it. "That's my girl," Shanice said, ignoring another stomach pang. "Listen, I got to get back to work. We'll celebrate tomorrow, okay?" As the afternoon turned to evening, the restaurant began filling up with the dinner crowd. Shanice's section was fully booked, including a party of 8 celebrating a birthday. The host seated them at tables 15 and 16, pushed together to accommodate the group. Looking at her reflection in the kitchen's steel surfaces, Shanice took deep breaths. Her stomach was acting up more than usual, but she couldn't afford to go home early. The birthday party would likely mean good tips, and she needed every dollar she could earn. Little did Shanice know that the next few hours would change everything. As she straightened her uniform one last time and picked up the first round of drink orders for the birthday party, she had no idea that this ordinary Saturday evening would soon turn into the most embarrassing moment of her professional life, leading to consequences she never could have imagined. The Saturday evening rush at the Silver Spoon was in full swing as Shanice navigated between tables with practiced grace. The birthday party at tables 15 and 16 was celebrating Mr. Anderson's 50th birthday, a local business owner known for his generous tips but demanding nature. "Welcome to the Silver Spoon." Shanice greeted the party with her warmest smile, fighting back another wave of stomach discomfort. "I'm Shanice. and I'll be taking care of you this evening. Mrs. Anderson, wearing an expensive pearl necklace that caught the chandelier light, took charge of ordering drinks. We'll start with 2 bottles of the Chateau Margaux 2015, she announced, causing Shanice's eyes to widen slightly. At $500 per bottle, this order alone would mean an excellent tip. As Shanice input the wine order into the computer system, Jenny passed by with a concerned look. "You're sweating, girl," she whispered. "Maybe you should take a break?" "Can't," Shanice replied, wiping her forehead with a napkin. "This is a big table. I need this." The kitchen was chaos, as usual for a Saturday night. Chef Marcus barked orders while line cooks rushed to plate perfect portions of Wagyu beef and pan-seared scallops. The heat from the kitchen made Shanice's discomfort worse, but she maintained her professional demeanor. Returning to the birthday party with their wine, Shanice's hands trembled slightly as she presented the bottle to Mr. Anderson for approval. The gurgling in her stomach was getting louder, and she prayed it wasn't audible to the guests. "And are we ready to order?" she asked, after carefully pouring wine for each guest. The group took their time, asking detailed questions about menu items and modifications. Shanice remained patient, even as her stomach protests grew stronger. At her other tables, a couple celebrated their anniversary with quiet intimacy, while a group of young professionals discussed their recent promotions over appetizers. Shanice moved between them all, keeping water glasses filled and responding to every request with efficiency. During a brief moment between tasks, she ducked into the employee bathroom, clutching her stomach. The pain was getting worse, and she felt bloated and uncomfortable. Looking in the mirror, she saw her face was pale and slightly damp with perspiration. "Just a few more hours," she told her reflection, taking another antacid from her apron pocket. The medicine hadn't been helping much lately, but it was all she could afford. Back in the dining room, the atmosphere was lively with conversation and the soft clink of silverware against fine china. The birthday party's appetizers were ready, and Shanice carefully arranged them on her serving tray. "Here we have the seared foie gras," she announced, placing the dishes with precision, "and the truffle-infused seafood tower." The guests oohed and ahed appropriately, snapping photos with their phones. Manager Thompson watched from his usual spot near the host's stand, nodding approvingly at Shanice's service. She felt a small surge of pride, knowing she was handling her section well despite feeling ill. As the evening progressed, Shanice's condition worsened. The pressure in her abdomen was building, and she found herself taking shorter steps and moving more carefully between tables. She had experienced similar symptoms before, but never this intense during a shift. The birthday party's main courses were nearly ready, and Shanice knew this would be the most challenging part of service. 8 heavy plates of expensive entrees needed to be delivered smoothly and efficiently. She couldn't afford any mistakes. In the kitchen, she watched as Chef Marcus added final garnishes to Mr. Anderson's aged ribeye, a $95 masterpiece of culinary expertise. The other plates looked equally impressive: butter poached lobster, rack of lamb, and duck à l'orange. "Ready to run these, Janice?" Chef Marcus asked, noting her unusual pallor. "You don't look so hot." "I'm fine," she insisted, though her stomach chose that moment to make a loud, concerning noise. Several kitchen staff members glanced her way, but quickly returned to their tasks. Loading the plates onto 2 serving trays, Shanice took a deep breath. The weight of the trays seemed heavier than usual, and her stomach churned ominously. As she pushed through the kitchen doors into the dining room, she had no idea that the next few minutes would become the most mortifying moment of her career, a moment that would soon go viral on social media and change her life forever. Balancing 2 heavy trays of expensive entrees, Shanice made her way carefully through the crowded dining room. Her stomach was churning violently now, and sweat beaded on her forehead as she approached tables 15 and 16. The birthday party guests were engaged in animated conversation, wine glasses half empty and appetizer plates cleared. "Pardon me," Shanice announced, her voice slightly strained. "I have your main courses." The table fell silent with anticipation as she positioned herself between Mr. Anderson and his wife. The first tray was successfully distributed, 4 plates placed precisely in front of their respective diners. As Shanice turned to retrieve the second tray, her stomach made a sound that she could no longer ignore. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Just a moment longer, she thought desperately, lifting the second tray. The weight of the plate seemed to press directly against her troubled abdomen. Mrs. Anderson was describing the wine to another guest when Shanice began placing the remaining entrees. The moment struck without warning. A loud, unmistakable sound echoed through the dining room, cutting through the elegant atmosphere like a thunderclap. Shanice froze, the last plate of duck à l'orange suspended mid-air. The sound had come from her, and there was no pretending otherwise. The silence that followed was deafening. Forks stopped mid-bite at nearby tables. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Even the soft background music seemed to fade away, though it was still playing. Mr. Anderson's face turned red, not from embarrassment but from barely contained anger. His wife's perfectly manicured hand flew to her mouth in shock. The other party guests stared, some fighting back inappropriate laughter, others looking absolutely mortified. I. Shanice stammered, her face burning with humiliation. She quickly set down the final plate, her hands shaking so badly she nearly missed the table. From a nearby table, someone snickered, then another. Soon, scattered laughter rippled through the dining room. A young woman at table 12 had her phone out, and Shanice realized with horror that she was recording. This is absolutely unacceptable. Mrs. Anderson's voice cut through the chaos. Where is the manager? I want to speak to the manager immediately. Shanice backed away from the table, bumping into an empty chair. Jenny appeared at her side, touching her arm gently. Go to the break room, she whispered. I'll cover your section. But before Shanice could move, Manager Thompson materialized, his face a mask of professional concern. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, I sincerely apologize for this incident. Please, allow me to comp your entire meal this evening. Tears welled in Shanice's eyes as she heard snippets of conversation from around the room. Did that really just happen? Oh my God, I got it on video. In a place like this? Poor girl. The young woman with the phone was now typing rapidly, and Shanice knew with sickening certainty that her moment of humiliation would soon be shared with the world. Unable to face the stairs any longer, she turned and walked as quickly as she could toward the break room, her vision blurring with tears. Behind her, she could hear Manager Thompson continuing to apologize profusely to the Andersons, promising them not only a free meal but a gift certificate for their next visit. In the break room, Shanice collapsed onto a chair, her body shaking with sobs. The medical condition she couldn't afford to treat had just cost her something far more valuable, her dignity, and quite possibly her job. Through the break room door, she could hear the dining room slowly returning to normal, but with an undercurrent of gossip and laughter that she knew centered around her. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket, a text from Jenny. Thompson wants to see you in his office when you're ready. Shanice buried her face in her hands. How would she face everyone after this? How would she pay her bills if she lost this job? How would she help Tamika stay in college? The door opened, and Jenny slipped in, carrying a glass of water. Here, she said softly, setting it down beside Shanice. Take a few minutes to compose yourself, but Thompson's waiting. Shanice nodded, wiping her eyes with a napkin. She knew this conversation with her manager would determine her future at the Silver Spoon, if she still had one. As she tried to steady her breathing, she could hear new guests being seated in her section, their laughter mixing with whispers about that waitress who had just provided the evening's unexpected entertainment. Manager Thompson's office was small but elegantly decorated, with framed restaurant reviews and certificates covering one wall. Shanice sat rigidly in the chair across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The events from the dining room still echoed in her mind as Thompson closed the door behind them. Shanice, he began, settling into his leather chair, I've known you for 2 years now. You've been one of our most reliable servers. He paused, removing his glasses to polish them with his handkerchief. But what happened out there? It's beyond inappropriate. Sir, I can explain. Shanice's voice trembled. I've been having medical issues. The Andersons are threatening to post negative reviews on every platform they can find, Thompson interrupted, replacing his glasses. They're regular customers who spend thousands here annually. Mr. Anderson sits on the board of several local businesses. Through the office walls, they could hear the muffled sounds of the dining room. The incident had occurred just 30 minutes ago, but it felt like hours to Shanice. Her phone had been buzzing constantly in her apron pocket. Probably Tamika, who must have already seen the viral video by now. I've had to comp their entire party's meal, Thompson continued. That's over $2,000 in losses, not counting the gift certificates I had to offer to smooth things over. Janice felt fresh tears forming. I'll pay it back, she offered desperately. I can work extra shifts. That won't be necessary, Thompson held up his hand. However, I need to place you on immediate suspension while we evaluate this situation. 2 weeks, unpaid. The words hit Janice like a physical blow. 2 weeks without pay. Her mind raced to her stack of medical bills, her sister's tuition payment, her rent due next week. Please, she whispered, I can't afford. A knock at the door interrupted her plea. Jenny poked her head in, her face concerned. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this, Mr. Thompson. She handed him her phone. Janice watched as Thompson's expression darkened while scrolling through whatever was on the screen. Finally, he looked up, his face grave. The video was going viral, he said flatly. It's already got 50,000 views on TikTok. People are tagging the restaurant. Janice felt the room spin slightly. 50,000 people had already witnessed her humiliation, and the number was growing. She imagined Tamika seeing it, her classmates sharing it, future employers finding it. Under these circumstances, Thompson continued, I think it's best if we extend the suspension indefinitely. We'll call you once we've assessed the impact on our business. Outside the office, the dinner service continued. Janice could hear the clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, the normal sounds of the restaurant she'd come to think of as a second home. Now it all seemed distant, like a life that was slipping away from her. Can I at least finish my shift? She asked quietly, though she already knew the answer. Thompson shook his head. Jenny will cover your tables. Please collect your things and leave through the back entrance. In the locker room, Janice changed out of her uniform with trembling hands. Her phone showed 15 missed calls from Tamika and numerous messages from friends asking if she was that waitress in the viral video. As she gathered her belongings, other servers came and went, some offering awkward smiles, others avoiding eye contact entirely. Jenny rushed in just as Janice was closing her locker. Girl, I am so sorry, Jenny hugged her tightly. This isn't right. You're sick. They should understand that. Janice returned the hug, grateful for the small kindness. Thanks, Jenny. Take care of my tables, okay? The back alley was dark and quiet when Janice emerged. The same door she'd entered through hopefully that morning now felt like an exit from her entire career. As she waited for her rideshare, she checked her bank account on her phone. $342.17. Not enough for rent, let alone everything else. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Tamika. Oh, sis, are you okay? The video's everywhere. Call me. Janice leaned against the cold brick wall, letting the reality of her situation sink in. In just a few hours, she had become an internet meme, lost her income, and potentially ruined her chances of getting another serving job in Atlanta's high-end restaurant scene. As her ride approached, she wondered how she would explain all this to Tamika. More importantly, she wondered how they would survive the coming weeks while the internet had its laugh at her expense. By Monday morning, Janice's unfortunate incident had taken on a life of its own. The original TikTok video had reached over 2 million views, spawning countless remixes, memes, and reaction videos. Some people added sound effects, others turned it into dance challenges, and a few even made songs about the fancy restaurant waitress. Janice lay in her bed, scrolling through her phone with growing horror. The video had spread to every social media platform. Comment sections were filled with a mix of cruel jokes and sympathetic messages. This is why I don't eat at fancy restaurants. Poor girl, hope she didn't lose her job. Rich people acting like they've never farted before some. Hashtag, justice for the waitress. Her sister Tamika sat on the edge of the bed, trying to comfort her. Maybe we can get it taken down. There must be some way to report it. It's everywhere now, Janice replied, her voice hollow. Someone even made a Twitter account called Silver Spoon Server with my picture. She showed Tamika the parody account, which already had thousands of followers. The apartment buzzer rang, making both sisters jump. That's probably another news reporter, Tamika said, getting up to check. Local media had been trying to get interviews since Sunday, when the story hit their radar. Janice's phone rang, another unknown number. She had received dozens of calls from journalists, podcast hosts, and even a few morning shows wanting to feature her story. She declined them all, too embarrassed to relive the incident publicly. A text from Jenny appeared. The restaurant's getting flooded with fake reservations under names like Ms. Tootie and Dr. Gas. Thompson is losing it. Despite her situation, Janice couldn't help but smile slightly at that. The internet had turned her humiliation into a protest against the restaurant's handling of the situation. Hashtag boycott Silver Spoon was trending locally on Twitter. Tamika returned to the bedroom. It was Mrs. Johnson from next door. She brought us a casserole and said to tell you she's on your side. The support from strangers was touching, but it didn't solve Shanice's immediate problems. Her stomach issues hadn't improved, and now she had no health insurance to get proper treatment. The stack of bills on her kitchen counter seemed to grow taller every day. Opening her laptop, she began searching for new jobs. However, every search for server positions in Atlanta now showed news articles about her incident on the first page. Her name wasn't in the articles, but her face was clearly visible in the video screenshots. Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from her doctor's office. Ms. Williams, we saw the video. Please come in for a consultation. We can discuss payment plans. The doorbell rang again. This time it was a delivery person with a large package. Tamika signed for it and brought it in. It's from some company called Tummy Peace, she read from the label. There's a note. We saw your story. Please try our natural digestive supplements. We'd love to sponsor your social media if interested. Shanice stared at the package. Companies were now trying to profit from her embarrassment. She perceived similar offers from probiotics brands, gas relief medicine manufacturers, and even a yoga studio specializing in digestive health. Her phone lit up with another notification, an email from the Silver Spoon's HR department. Dear Ms. Williams, due to the ongoing situation and its impact on our establishment's reputation, we regret to inform you that your suspension has been converted to termination, effective immediately. Shanice didn't need to read further. She had expected this, but seeing it in writing made it real. 8 years of restaurant experience, and now she was famous for the wrong reasons. Tamika sat beside her sister, putting an arm around her shoulders. We'll figure this out. Maybe we could start a GoFundMe? People are supporting you online. I don't want charity, Shanice said firmly. I just want my dignity back. But as she looked at her mounting bills, her dwindling bank account, and the constant stream of messages on her phone, she wondered if dignity was a luxury she could afford right now. The viral video showed no signs of slowing down, and with it, her chances of finding another serving job seemed to decrease by the hour. Her phone buzzed again. Another interview request, this time from a major talk show. Shanice stared at the message, wondering if perhaps it was time to take control of her narrative, before the internet decided her story for her. 3 days after her termination from the Silver Spoon, Shanice sat nervously in the green room of Morning Talk Atlanta, one of the city's most popular daytime shows. The show's producer, a woman named Lisa, was reviewing some pre-interview questions. Just be yourself, Lisa assured her, checking her clipboard. People want to hear your side of the story. Our social media is already blowing up just from announcing you'll be on today's show. Shanice smoothed her new dress, a gift from Tamika, who had insisted she needed to look her best for television. The makeup artist had just finished touching up her face, making her look fresh and natural under the studio lights. 5 minutes, called a production assistant, poking his head into the room. In the studio, host Maria Chen was warming up the audience. Through the monitor in the green room, Shanice could hear her introducing the segment. By now, you've probably seen the viral video of a waitress's embarrassing moment at an upscale Atlanta restaurant. Today, we have her here to share her story. The audience applauded as Shanice was led to the stage. The bright lights and camera crews made her heart race, but she remembered Tamika's advice. Just speak your truth, sis. Welcome, Shanice. Maria smiled warmly. Thank you for being brave enough to come on our show today. As the interview began, Shanice found herself opening up about everything: her ongoing health issues, the expensive medical bills, supporting her sister through college, and the pressure of maintaining a perfect image in fine dining. I couldn't afford proper medical care, she explained, her voice steady despite her nervousness. When you're a server, you can't just call in sick. You don't get paid if you don't work. The audience murmured sympathetically. Maria leaned forward, her expression concerned. And the restaurant fired you for this involuntary medical incident? Yes, Shanice nodded, after 2 years of perfect service reviews. What happened next would change everything. During the commercial break, the show's producer rushed onto the stage, holding her phone. You're trending nationwide. The hashtag serving justice is exploding, and people are sharing their own stories of workplace discrimination and medical struggles. The show's social media feeds were flooded with comments. This could happen to any of us. Restaurant workers deserve health care. Who hasn't had an embarrassing medical moment? By the time the show ended, Shanice's phone was overwhelmed with notifications. Labor rights organizations wanted to feature her story. Healthcare advocacy groups requested interviews. Restaurant worker unions asked her to speak at their events. Most surprisingly, a message arrived from a prominent civil rights attorney. Dear Ms. Williams, your case highlights several workplace discrimination issues. Would you be interested in discussing legal representation? Back home that evening, Shanice and Tamika watched as clips from her interview went viral. But this time, the narrative was different. She wasn't just that waitress anymore. She had become a symbol for workers' rights and healthcare access. Look at this, Tamika exclaimed, showing her phone to Shanice. A GoFundMe started by restaurant workers had already raised over $20,000 for her medical expenses and lost wages. The local news picked up the story's new angle. Headlines changed from embarrassing restaurant incident to viral video exposes healthcare crisis in service industry. Even some of the Silver Spoon's own staff spoke out. Jenny had posted a long statement about witnessing Shanice's dedication despite her health struggles, and other servers shared similar stories of working while sick because they couldn't afford to take time off. That night, as Shanice prepared for bed, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Hi Shanice, this is Michelle from Better Way Restaurants. We believe in treating our staff with dignity and providing full benefits. Would you be interested in discussing opportunities with us? She showed the message to Tamika, who was still scrolling through supportive comments online. See, Tamika smiled. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. Shanice sat on her bed, reflecting on how differently things had turned out from what she'd feared. Instead of ending her career, her embarrassing moment had sparked an important conversation about workers' rights, healthcare access, and workplace dignity. Her phone buzzed again, another interview request, this time from a national news network. The subject line read, "Your story is making a difference." For the first time since the incident, Shanice felt something beyond embarrassment or fear. She felt purpose. Her humiliation had transformed into a platform for change, and she was beginning to understand that sometimes life's most mortifying moments could lead to its most meaningful opportunities. 2 weeks after her television appearance, Shanice sat in the offices of Carter and Williams law firm, surrounded by papers and evidence. Attorney Sarah Carter, known for winning major workplace discrimination cases, spread several documents across her mahogany desk. Shanice nodded, reviewing the official complaint they were preparing to file. The lawsuit alleged wrongful termination, medical discrimination, and hostile work environment. The legal documents told a story far bigger than one embarrassing incident. Look at these statistics, Sarah pointed to a report. 70% of restaurant workers lack health insurance. 85% have worked while sick. Your case is highlighting a national problem. Meanwhile, the Silver Spoon was facing a public relations nightmare. Their Yelp page was flooded with negative reviews. Reservations had dropped significantly. Local food critics were publishing articles questioning the restaurant's treatment of staff. Janice's phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. Thompson's in panic mode. 4 servers quit today. The Andersons came in and people at other tables actually booed them. The lawsuit made headlines in the local news. Viral video Waitress CUSEPSALARDSTAURANT claims DS. The Silver Spoon's lawyers reached out quickly, hoping to settle quietly. The first offer came through that afternoon. $25,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. Sarah scoffed at the number. They're not taking this seriously enough. Your story has already inspired 3 other restaurants in Atlanta to announce new healthcare benefits for their staff. Shanice's social media following had grown exponentially. Her Instagram, where she now shared stories about workers' rights and healthcare access, had over 100,000 followers. Labor organizations invited her to speak at their events. She had become an accidental activist. "We don't just want money," Shanice told Sarah firmly. "We want change." That evening, during a strategy meeting at a local coffee shop, Tamika showed Shanice something on her laptop. A group of medical students had started a petition demanding better healthcare access for service industry workers, naming it the Shanice Williams Initiative. "You're making history, sis," Tamika beamed proudly. The Silver Spoon's second offer arrived the next day, $50,000 and a public apology. Again, they declined. Sarah worked late into the night, preparing their counter-proposal. They wanted more than just compensation. They demanded policy changes that would affect all restaurant employees. Comprehensive health insurance, paid sick leave, clear medical accommodation policies, anti-discrimination training for management. The media coverage intensified. National news networks picked up the story. Headlines read, "From VIRAL shame to VIRALCHANG. How WNYITRES is revolutionizing RESTAURN to worker RIGSTS." The pressure mounted on the Silver Spoon. Regular customers began asking about their employee health care policies. Local politicians mentioned the case in discussions about worker protection laws. Other restaurants in Atlanta started announcing improved benefits packages, trying to distance themselves from the controversy. 1 month into the legal battle, the Silver Spoon's management board called an emergency meeting. Their reputation was in freefall. Something had to change. Their third offer arrived on a Tuesday morning, $150,000 in compensation. Full health benefits for all full-time employees. Implementation of comprehensive sick leave policy. Management sensitivity training. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Reinstatement of position, if desired. Sarah smiled as she presented the offer to Shanice. "This is what real change looks like. Your embarrassing moment has turned into a movement." Shanice read through the terms carefully, thinking about all the restaurant workers who would benefit from these changes. Her phone buzzed with another message. Better Way Restaurants was still interested in hiring her as their worker advocacy coordinator with full benefits. "I think we've won," Shanice said quietly, looking at the offer letter. "No," Sarah corrected her. "This is just the beginning. Other restaurants are watching. Other workers are speaking up. You've started something much bigger than one incident or one lawsuit." As Shanice left the law office that evening, she passed a group of restaurant workers protesting poor working conditions. They were carrying signs that read "Justice for Service Workers" and "Health care is a right." One poster caught her eye. "Thanks, Shanice, for giving us the courage to speak up." She smiled, realizing that sometimes the most humiliating moments could lead to the most powerful changes. Her story wasn't just about an embarrassing incident anymore. It was about dignity, justice, and the right to basic human needs like healthcare. 1 year after the infamous incident at the Silver Spoon, Shanice stood at a podium in front of the Atlanta City Council. The chamber was packed with restaurant workers, activists, and media representatives. She adjusted the microphone, taking a deep breath before beginning her speech. "A year ago, I was just a waitress trying to hide my health problems because I couldn't afford treatment," she began. "Today, I'm here to support the Restaurant Workers Health Care Act, which will ensure no server ever has to make that choice again." The audience included many familiar faces. Jenny sat in the front row, now wearing a union organizer badge. Behind her were several former Silver Spoon employees who had become vocal advocates for workers' rights. Even Mrs. Johnson, her former neighbor who had brought that first supportive casserole, was there. Tamika, now in her final year of college, recorded the speech on her phone. She had switched her major to labor relations, inspired by her sister's journey. The viral video that had once brought shame now served as a powerful teaching tool in her classes about workplace dignity. "Since my story went viral," Shanice continued, 28 restaurants in Atlanta have voluntarily implemented comprehensive healthcare coverage. 15 have introduced paid sick leave. But it's not enough to rely on voluntary changes. We need laws that protect all workers. The council members listened attentively. The proposed law would require all restaurants with more than 15 employees to provide health insurance and paid sick leave. It had become known informally as the Shanice Law. In the years since the incident, Shanice's life had transformed completely. She now worked as the director of worker advocacy at Better Way Restaurants, where she developed employee wellness programs and trained management on medical accommodation policies. Her own health issues were under control, thanks to the comprehensive insurance she now enjoyed. The Silver Spoon had undergone changes too. After settling the lawsuit, they had completely revised their employee policies. Manager Thompson had been replaced by a new director who prioritized worker well-being. Their experience had become a case study in how not to handle employee health issues. That video didn't just capture an embarrassing moment, Shanice told the council. It captured the reality that thousands of service workers face every day, choosing between their health and their job. After her speech, as people lined up to thank her, Shanice's phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had posted the original viral video again, but this time with a different caption. 1 year ago, this happened. Now look at all the change it created. #never stop fighting. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. My restaurant gives us health insurance now because of her. I finally got the courage to speak up about my own health issues at work. From embarrassment to empowerment. What a journey. Later that evening, Shanice and Tamika celebrated at a small restaurant owned by former Silver Spoon employees. The walls displayed posters promoting worker rights, and every table had a QR code linking to employee healthcare resources. Remember when you thought your life was over? Tamika asked, showing Shanice their old text messages from the day after the incident. Shanice laughed, something she could finally do about the situation. Who knew that one awkward moment would lead to all this? Her phone lit up with the results of the council vote. Restaurant Workers Healthcare Act passes 12-3. Implementation to begin within 90 days. Cheers erupted throughout the restaurant as the news spread. Servers, cooks, and customers all celebrated together. Someone started a chant. Thank you, Shanice. Looking around at all the lives that have been changed, Shanice felt a deep sense of peace. Her embarrassing viral moment had transformed into a movement that would help thousands of workers. The shame had become strength, the humiliation had become hope. As she raised her glass to toast with the celebrating crowd, Shanice thought about all the restaurant workers who would never have to choose between their health and their job. Sometimes she realized the most mortifying moments could lead to the most meaningful changes. The viral video would always exist somewhere on the internet, but it no longer held any power over her. Instead, it stood as a testament to how one small moment could spark a revolution of dignity and justice. To new beginnings, she toasted, surrounded by the community she had helped build. And to never being afraid to stand up for what's right, even when life catches you in embarrassing moments. The crowd echoed her toast, and Shanice smiled, knowing that her story would continue to inspire change long after the viral moment was forgotten.